Hello, everyone. It's John Cash Philippi with GNL Voice. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Frank Bonini. He's an old friend. And when I say old, I don't just mean he's an old guy. We've been friends for 15 years. We opened a property together back in 2011, tried to reopen that property a couple of years, about 4 years later. But when we did that, we were already seasoned. In short words, we'd been around the business
Seasoned
a
is a
long
good
time.
word. Yeah.
It's true. But Frank, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about, your history with tech before we get into some of the new conversation?
Would you like me to start before electricity or after that? Which one's better?
Well, well, preferably after.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I got started in IT back in 1979. That was my first IT job. I was doing some fun stuff at RCA, involving things like paper tape and other bleeding edge technologies at the time.
That was a parade stuff, right? Back then?
It became that later, and a lot of it, I'm sure, was shredded up for confetti because it was about that useful. But quite honestly, that's how we sent Galileo to the moon, right? So and I don't mean like Galileo the guy, but he was a good friend though. So anyway, from there, just sort of cutting my teeth, finishing school all at the same time, and then moved on to DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, which I think was just such an outstanding company at the time. Grew up in the late stage PDP and early stage VAX world, so tons of experience there. Great experience, great people, a lot of consulting opportunities. It was a very, very rich learning experience. From DEC, I moved on to Microsoft. Um, when I went to Microsoft, DEC was sort of on decline, and one of the reasons I went to Microsoft is it felt a lot like DEC when I first joined DEC. Right, it was young, it was growing, it was a lot of fun. Um, but one of the nice things about being at DEC was that I was there before PCs became a thing. And when I went to Microsoft, PCs were a thing. And guess what Microsoft did for a living, right? So it was kind of a nice natural progression. The time at Microsoft really was probably the best for me in terms of development. I was exposed to so much technology and so many just brilliant people. It was really, really a powerful experience. So there was a whole bunch of little things that happened in there in the next few years. And then, I got into gaming in 2006. Actually worked at the Borgata. Great start. Worked with my good friend John Forelli, who may be watching this. Hi, John. Um, but yeah, he was a
Another
great
old
mentor.
guy.
Huh?
Another old guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're all getting up there. But he was a great mentor, and just some of the great projects we did there. They were a lot of fun. Again, more learning, more understanding about the casino industry and how the thing that I remember most from my time at Borgata was having come from what I at the time called the real world. Um, it was just how little the casino industry had adopted more modern ways of applying IT technology. They were kind of still, stuck in the earlier parts of the computing era, shall we say? That's a very nice way, I think, of saying it. But John was very forward thinking, and we did a lot of very cool things at Borgata that were not in line with that kind of old thinking. So it gave me an opportunity there to stretch and grow again. And then, like you said, John, then after that, it was on to where I met you, opening that new property. Tremendous experience. Learned a lot of things there. Learned a lot of things I would never do again
You can
there.
say the name Revel. It's not a bad thing. It's not
It is
cursed.
for me. My therapist warned me about you know, rehashing that, but it was we all know the story of Revel. I think that was it was a fun 2.5 years, but it was trying. It was very trying. There was let's just say not a lot of gaming thinking going on. There was other things that people thought they were going to do that were just well beyond their sphere of influence to
Well, I'd like
actually.
to think of Revel as the Apollo 13 mission. It was the successful failure in that we survived, but because the tech we built was pretty cool.
What we built was very cool, from the property to the tech to the team. It was, those were the positives that we took out of that place. That was a very rewarding experience for that reason. Plus, also just the networking, the connections, with vendors, with just all kinds of different people who were involved in that project. It was rewarding from that perspective, and that's what I chose to take forward. Okay, not the other stuff we leave behind. Those are all lessons learned. Here are things that people did that I would never do, those kinds of things. And I'm not going to get into that detail, but I know you know what I'm referring to. So um, then, like you said, we went back and reopened that property, right? And that property is actually very, very successful now, and I am thrilled to see how successful it is, because it was such a great project and it just needed to be managed right. And I think now that's what's happening there, and it's proving to be very effective. So after that, that's when I stepped into the CIO role over here at Live, which again, when I go for opportunities like this, I'm looking for opportunities to learn, right? And when I met the people at Live initially, it was very clear that these people thought very differently than the people I'd worked with in gaming in the past, and were much more aggressive in a good way about implementing differentiating technology. So it gave me an opportunity to really stretch even more, and that's what I was looking for at the time. So 7 years later, here we are.
And I am, I mean, we all watched and wonder, Frank, because I mean, in some cases, I hate to say it, I actually remember the tic-tac-toe chicken um, that people were betting on way back when. So, uh,
Ah,
yes, trying to beat the tic-tac-toe chicken. Okay, but I mean, what? I mean, when we started working together initially, Alexa was starting to come out a couple of years during that time and all that. And I remember we had this severe conversation because I've always been one to say, "Hey, I love having something that just tells me things like how many pints are in a gallon or something like that." And you were like, I will never have that in my house ever, ever. And it's because it listens to you and records everything. And with AI nowadays, obviously there's a parallel there.
there
You
is. There
know,
is. So I do have to make a comment on Alexa, though. Do you remember the misguided direction that someone wanted to go with? Why do we need to put telephones in the hotel rooms? We can just put Alexas in there.
I do
Um,
remember that.
yes, and my comment was, not in any hotel room I'll ever stay in. So my dislike, and I'll use the word dislike because you know mixed audience, will remain strong for this for Alexa. Anytime I walk into a home with Alexa, I spend the first few minutes there taunting Alexa, and I've actually gotten Alexa to stop answering me. um, because it just won't respond to my questions anymore. And my questions are all around, which agencies are you reporting what you're hearing to, and tinfoil hat stuff, right? So it's kind of fun to play with, but I still don't have one in my house, and I still never would, right? I mean, the way that I look at Alexa is this: it used to be that if you wanted to wiretap somebody, you had to get a court order, there had to be probable cause, there had to be all kinds of stuff. Now you just have to go to Best Buy, and that just not for me, not for me. I do value my privacy. I think that a lot of things have caused us to devalue our privacy, and I'm not saying everybody with an Alexa doesn't value their privacy. Obviously, there's a lot of smart people that have an Alexa in their home. I just choose not to have that kind of device here. But taking that into the current world with AI, you're right, there are a lot of strong parallels there, right? Because my problem with Alexa is, hey, you don't know what it's doing with the information, you don't know what it's recording, you don't know what it's saving. That is exactly the case with AI today. Is AI great technology? Absolutely. Is it going to change the world? It already has. It's only going to change things more, right? But initially, the hype was so strong with AI that I think a lot of people, once again, didn't think deeper, and they were like, oh my God, look at what this thing can do, and look at what it's done for me. Look at this great email it wrote, look at this document it helped me build. Those are all great things, but when you think about AI in either your personal life or an enterprise, you really have to think about what's it doing with the data that it's getting, right? And it's not just overt data; it watches your behavior. I use sometimes I'll use Claude at home, other times I'll use ChatGPT. But the interesting thing is, let's take Claude as an example. You can go into settings in Claude and you can say, "Hey, what do you know about me?" And it will spit out this long thing, and it knows where I live, it knows where my second house is, it knows what my preferences are, and this is all just derived from the few chats that I've had with the LLM. So
It's funny you say that because I was talking to AI and it started calling me Cash,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like going, "Oh, that's familiar." It was
yeah,
kind of creepy.
yeah. It is. One of my developers uses this on a very regular basis, and at this point, it talks to him like he talks. So, it'll say things like, well, that really sounds like you, Chris, or
Mhm.
things like that. And that's, it's it's interesting. I'm sure that there's a great deal of programming that went into, making the model more um, human-like in its interactions, just to make it easier to work with, right? Reminds me of 2001, right? He's not really intelligent, but he's programmed that way, or he doesn't feel, but he's programmed to make it sound like that, so it's easier for us to communicate with him. Well, that's pretty much what we're dealing with here. This is not Hal, obviously, but it's you just have to be careful, right? Now that the hype is kind of worn down a little bit, you have to think about what is going to happen with this data. It's one of the reasons that early on we stopped using everything except Copilot, and the reason we did that at work is because one thing that Copilot promises in the agreement, and again, we have no way to verify this, we kind of have to trust, and if we're going to trust, we might as well trust somebody with deep pockets, um, that your data doesn't go outside the bounds of your Microsoft 365 tenant. Great, we were already a 365 shop, so it was just a natural fit for us, that's how we wound up there.
Oh, I didn't even know that. But
Yeah.
speaking of, I guess speaking on the area of AI, everybody says AI is going to kill the workforce. And uh, you and I have been around back in the days when five people in an IT shop was generous. And we all lived in the server room. They didn't even give us offices. You had the lab coat because it's so cold, and you grabbed it and put it on and went and you worked
Yeah.
in the server room directly. And then somebody got the idea we can get offices. Now you need five people just to run your cyber
Yes.
division. So, I mean, AI killing the workforce? I don't know if it's killing or right sizing. What's your thoughts?
I think in some areas it might actually grow it. I think you're going to see a shift in what folks are doing both in IT and not IT. I kind of liken AI to cybersecurity, except I'm not sure the AI function should live in IT at this point. But I think it's going to take people to manage how it's deployed, how it's used, where the guardrails are. Governance, when you think about governing a technology, thinking back to when we were doing this kinds of things, you would write a governance document, and that governance document was good for a good chunk of time. It wasn't really a living document. It was almost like, hey, it's the Magna Carta. Here you go. So this is here forever. So in the world of AI, governance has to be fluid because the technology is changing so fast. That has to be a living document, and it sort of has to keep pace with what's happening. The only way to do that, I think, is to have a group of people really dedicated to the function that are on top of this. The governance guidelines need to be a little bit more general so that you're not changing it every other week when a new model comes out. But it's really interesting in terms of the workforce itself. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say right sizing. I think and maybe it is right sizing because really what it's going to do is it's going to make the existing workforce more efficient once we all understand it better and understand how to apply it. So in that regard, you could consider it right sizing because maybe I'm not hiring as quickly as I was before. But when the CFO turns around to you and says, "Oh, great, we have AI now. How many people can we get rid of?" That's just not realistic. I know we're seeing that with some of the tech companies. I think that's a mistake. I think they're going to retreat on that after some time. But even now, I'm looking at increasing my development team, not shrinking it because of AI. The demands don't go away, and we're not at a point where we can just throw AI at something and say, create, make it happen. So the human is still an extremely valuable component here. AI makes us better. It's a great tool, but it's a tool. It's not a replacement for people, my opinion.
Well, no, I think I'm with you. I think of it like the calculator. I mean, the calculator, I mean, used to do long division. Matter of fact, they forced us to do long division just so just so we know how to do it. And
Yep.
now I can do long division. I can do formulas. I can do all sorts of really cool stuff. But
Yep.
I use a calculator or I use a spreadsheet or I use all these things that are tools that we used to do by hand.
Yeah, it's
Um,
about efficiency, right? I mean,
yeah,
calculator used to get you detention if you showed up in math class with a calculator. Now, not getting your calculator, not bringing your calculator will get you detention, right? So
exactly.
it's yeah, and some of the fundamentals go away. I've had this conversation with you before about
Yeah.
the level that we teach computer science at in a lot of cases. People don't really understand how computers work as well as they used to. They understand how to make them do things, but what's under the covers there might be a little mysterious to some folks. So it's I think we've kind of glossed over what it takes to make an AI possible. Right? We're not thinking about the technology. We're just thinking about the utility. Maybe not a bad thing. Maybe we don't need to think about the technology. Let's just use it to make the products better, to improve our time to market, to do things like that. But like anything else, you have to be careful. You have to be careful.
Yeah, I used to love to do that class on teaching people how to count in binary. And nowadays they look at me like, "What's that?"
Yeah, yeah,
Almost,
right.
Um, yeah, binary and hex has gone away, but I was going to go into a couple, but I want to talk because we kind of talked about governance. One thing that's changed over the years, especially since COVID, but that was the shift. What really was regulatory. I mean, the
Mhm.
regulatory has changed dramatically over the years. It used to be everything's in the box. Don't touch it, don't breathe on it, don't do that. And now, what's your take on where it's going and how is it getting easier to work with or, harder?
Let's see. What's the right way to answer this question? Oh boy. So,
People are watching, be careful.
so when I started in gaming, um, the regulators were interesting. We actually had um, two that we needed to please every time. We had the Division of Gaming Enforcement and the Casino Control Commission, right? And they
Yeah.
both had very similar charters. And so if we wanted to do an upgrade, we had to put it in two labs and both had to say go. And if we wanted to put a new system in, we had to have both regulators approve of things. So um, at one point, a nameless governor decided there should only be one. And I think one of the few things that person did correctly was to choose which one survived and which one did not. From that point forward, in that jurisdiction, I felt had an improved relationship with the regulators to the point that when we went back and did that property the second time, I kind of saw them more almost as a partner than as the Sith. Okay, um, and it was useful because they kept us on our toes, and that's how I chose to look at it. The regulators making certain, um, I'll call them demands, but they're regulatory requirements, and you have to live up to those requirements. But when we took them apart and we looked at them in detail, they weren't unreasonable. Okay. Now I'm not going to say that every jurisdiction is there because we operate today in four different jurisdictions, and they are very different in how we deal with the regulators in each of those jurisdictions. Some of them are very forward thinking, others not so much. Um, some of them are, let us know what you're doing and let's talk about it and then let's make it happen. Others are, expect a mother may I kind of relationship. And so I think it depends on the jurisdiction you're operating in, but and the choice of relationship you choose to have with them. I choose to look at them as um, an extension of my compliance folks, right? Where I know that's the relationship with the compliance team, but I think those regulations help more than hurt in many cases, and they give us some guidelines. So overall, I think at least in the 20 years I've been doing this, that the relationship with the regulators has improved. I won't go to the point of saying it's warmed, okay, but it's definitely improved. It's not like it used to be. I think AI is going to be a real interesting thing for the regulators. I don't think they have any more of a clue on how to put the guardrails around it than a lot of us do right now. So I see even more opportunities for collaboration there to work through that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I work in tribal, and with tribal nations, regulators change from place to place, and
Mm-hmm.
you know the strictness of some and the ease of others. And but I've always said the same thing, and it's the dad rule. It's easy. It's easy to change a no into a yes, but it's impossible to change a yes to a no.
Right.
So sometimes I'd rather have a little bit more strict of a regulator who I could get him to change that no into a yes instead of that open one that says, yeah, go ahead. And I'm soon running
Right.
off the end of the cliff, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's not helping you at all. Right.
No, yeah.
But I also don't want the one that wants to get so deep into your business that it maybe poses a security risk. And I have had that in the past, and it's Um, I think that some of them have a tendency to overstep. Um, they don't like being called on it, and a lot of times that can result in a fine if you're not careful. So it's it's in the end it's the government, and you do what you always do with the government. You answer their questions. You
Yeah.
don't give them more information. You don't offer up something. You just say, hey, or you have a conversation. Here's an area that hasn't been regulated yet. Maybe it shouldn't. Let's talk about what your thoughts are, right? And so that we can get on. And this is particularly with the AI one. Um, I actually am thinking of a regulator I'd like to have the conversation with, but I don't know how to introduce it, and I need to be more comfortable with that before I start it.
Yeah, yeah, it's always there's a lot of framing that happens there. Maybe you should use AI to build that message.
Yeah, don't start that.
Well,
It's I'm almost afraid to see what AI would say. Now of course that you said that, I am going to ask it later.
Well, and I mean, you're doing some neat technology. You're just working with because you're working with so many properties at once, and you've got, properties you can put technology in and see if that's great, and then move it into the next and next and next. I know you're looking right now at live. You're looking at cashless gaming, or excuse me, cardless gaming, which has an evolution to it, into cashless gaming.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is a topic that we've all in this industry been batting around for years, right?
Mhm.
Um, so let's look at it as two different things:
Well,
cardless
always
and
tickets was always supposed to be the stopgap.
no. So look at cardless. Um, you're gonna be surprised that I'm gonna say this because you know my feeling for the technology underlying the vendor. But I think the only people doing cardless right now is Konami,
Mhm.
and the reason for that is they do it all on the LCD screen. Right? You can get it to pop up a QR code on the LCD screen with enough information in the QR code to know it's valid, to know where it came from, and you can start a session that way. As a matter of fact, I know that Ocean does this now. Um, and there's your cardless. Okay. Everybody else is looking at putting devices into each and every slot machine, whether it's a Bluetooth device or an NFC device or whatever. If I look across all of live right now, we're approaching 10,000 slot machines. So when you tell me I got to do something to each and every slot machine, oh, it only costs $100 per machine. No, it's 10,000 times that. Okay. So that's a big nut just to go cardless. So, but cardless is the first step towards cashless. So let's talk about cashless a little bit. Yes, there are solutions today. Personally, I've never interacted with one that I felt was user friendly. Okay. Um, but I think the bigger thing about cashless is just again, there's a cost component there. Depending on which way you go, you're putting something in every slot bank, maybe every machine, and now you've got that big upfront hardware cost. But then you also have to look at the cost of running the cashless business because there's three or four entities in that chain that want to skim a percentage off of all of those transactions, and now instead of making money on ATM fees, you're paying money to these people so that people don't have to deal in cash. Maybe there's a balance point there, but ATM, some casinos I've been to, and I don't go to a lot anymore, but every once in a while I'll go to one, and some of them I've seen $10 ATM fees. You know what kind of money they're pulling in just on ATM fees? So when we pose that to the cashless vendors, the answer is, well, we recommend that at least in the beginning to improve adoption, you eat those fees. So now I'm going to go from something that's a profitable fee, a profitable part of my business, to something that actually negatively impacts my bottom line,
Hmm.
just to get adoption of something that might help down the road. Um, I think cashless will become more popular as the demographic changes, right? I mean, you think about, people now who are willing to, just they don't carry a credit card even. Everything's done with your phone, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, you name it. Um, but it's a big upfront cost and a big shift in a lot of other things that I think the adoption will be difficult. I think there was one casino, I don't remember which one it was, that just recently announced that they were getting rid of the cashless stuff they had
Oh wow.
implemented. Um, I could have sworn I saw that on CDC, but um, we're still looking at it. We're not ready to move forward with it, but it's out there. I think it's coming. What I've told the cashless vendors, in addition to discussing whatever might deploy in the near term, I've asked many of them for what their vision of cashless V2 is, because V1 kind of sucks.
Well,
Okay.
it's funny because I did I did a cashless property, and
Yeah.
we went through the process, and I'd sit with the VIPs because we gave it to the VIPs for testing, and they'd all come in, they'd sit down, and in every group of 30 people or 20 people that we had dinner with, and then took them out to the floor and gave them free play. There was always about three or four of them who said, "Will this flip phone work?" And they would flip it open, and it's like,
Exactly.
"No." But
Right.
I'm
The
glad you
jitterbug
enjoyed the meal.
phone is not something that you're going to do cashless gaming on. I agree.
It's when it comes to adoption, we're going to have there. It's always a challenge. Um,
There's ways to encourage it, I suppose, promoting around it or things like that. But that doesn't solve the basic profitability question. At the end, you're asking me to give up a pretty reliable, you know, cash flow with that ATM fee and turn it into something that's really not as predictable, um, and affects me the other way. So I don't know. That's really up to the finance people to work through. I never claimed to be a finance person. I know enough about it to get my budget through, and that's and that's kind of where I stop. Right.
well, and the last thing I want to talk about really quickly is kiosk. I mean, because
Oof.
when you look at kiosk evolution, I mean, used to be banks of them, and people, I mean, would line up to get into the kiosk, and
Yep.
now they've gotten fewer and fewer, less and less, and people are going to the phones for
Hmm.
a lot of these their new spin and wins and all that. What's your view on that evolution as well? You think we're going to be kioskless relatively soon?
I don't know about relatively soon, but I think that is inevitable. I really do. Um, it's to the benefit of both the player and the property to eliminate time at the kiosk and let that happen on your phone while you're playing a game. Why are you going to make me get up from a slot machine to go punch a few buttons on a kiosk so I can have free play to use on the slot machine? Right? Let me do it on my phone. I'll have the free play right there. I don't stop playing. I'll download my free play immediately and use it. Um, with the gamification of some of the promotions on the kiosks, a lot of that is coming to the phone as well. I know that in the next version of the app that we use, that vendor is planning to merge a lot of the functionality in their kiosk into their phone as a native part of their platform. Think about the cost of putting those kiosks out there, right? And
They're expensive boxes.
they are expensive boxes, and you're not just putting a handful out. You're putting a lot of those guys out there, and now you've got the maintenance costs associated with that, just the consumables that go with it, the personnel involved in refilling the card stacks and the paper, and it just makes sense for it to go away over time. Um, but it's not just one part of the business. The other parts of the business have to be ready to not have a kiosk as well. That means no more food and beverage coupons, right? It's got to be on my phone. I got to be able to do all that stuff just with the player card. If we go cardless, push the button. Hey, here's a QR code. That's my player card. Okay, scan that, and now you can run a comp transaction just by scanning my phone. So other parts of the business also have to come along and be ready to work in that kiosk-less environment. The whole concept of wallets, right? I have one wallet I keep in my back pocket. That's my wallet, right? I don't have a wallet on my phone. But everybody's got their own wallet. How many wallets do I need, right? There has to be some kind of converged wallet technology that everybody decides, hey, you know what, this is good. Let's all work with the same kind of wallet, and now I can put anything in that wallet. My player card, my boarding pass, you name it. Everything goes into the one wallet, and then that makes the end user's life a lot more interesting. But yeah, kiosks. I'm looking forward to the day we don't need them anymore.
Well, Frank, it has been great having you on the show, and obviously, I'm hoping everybody learned a whole lot about the history of tech and where you think and I think it's going. And I'd love to have you on again.
I would love to do this again, John. This is always fun. I don't know how much anybody learned, but other than the fact that I'm fulfilling my goal of becoming a curmudgeon in my old age. So, but yeah, no, please,
We're
I
definitely
look
gonna have to
forward
get
to
a
it.
picture of them old guys and the Muppets.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I like that. I'm gonna get. Yeah, I think maybe Muppet wigs next time. Thanks a lot, John. It was good to see you.
Thank you, everybody. It's great. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on GNL Voice. Agilis helps the gaming industry realize its full potential through exceptional technology that goes beyond what other tech providers have trained hospitality to expect. We build our state-of-the-art hospitality-focused software for continuous innovation, industry-leading data sharing, maximum flexibility for best-of-breed performance, and smooth ecosystem integration, and an always-learning guest profile engine so you can create personal experiences. It's time for hospitality to go beyond with technology from Agilicis.